The Planning Commission welcomes you to this meeting, which are regularly scheduled for the second Tuesday of each month, and your interest is encouraged and appreciated. Additionally, the regular meetings can be streamed on YouTube Live. The address is on the agenda tonight. Members of the public may comment on agenda items at the meeting or remotely via teleconferencing by calling the number that's listed. Any member of the public participating via teleconference will be given the opportunity to provide public comment. Comment will always be also be accepted via email at, and again, the email address is in the agenda, or by mail delivered to the City of the Livingston Planning Department at the C Street office. Members of the public attending the meetings are advised that all pagers, cell phones, telephones, and other communication devices be put on vibrate mode or turned off during the Planning Commission meeting. So, Martha, can we get roll call?
Roll call. Commissioner Jasneel Singh,
Present.
Commissioner J.T. Mann,
Present.
Commissioner Steve Bassi,
Present.
Alternate Commissioner Mohinder Kanda, Vice Chair Jose Flores,
Present.
Chair Renee Mendonça.
Present.
For the record, all planning commissioners are in attendance.
Okay, now if we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item would be approval of the agenda. So can I get a motion, or at this point, Miguel or Maria, is there something we want to say about some of the agenda items before we approve the agenda?
I do, thank you. I just want to point out for the record that the Planning Commission agenda was revised since it was first distributed. Those revisions are shown in red text. Those were items number 9A and 9B. We added discussion that the commission will be reviewing, discussing, and providing staff direction on correspondence receiving from the Merced County Farm Bureau, as well as item 9B, the City of Livingston Multifamily Development Regulations. So those are the revisions that were made to the agenda. If the Planning Commission wants to propose any additional revisions, they can do so, but no other revisions are recommended.
So then, Miguel, at this point, then the items on public 8, or item number 8, the public hearings, are we going to remove those from the agenda, or no? Maria?
When we come to that part of the agenda, I can speak to that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion that we approve the agenda.
Can I get a second?
I can second that.
I'm sorry, who moved and second?
Jasneel.
Jasneel moved, and it was second by Jose, okay.
Okay, now we move on to public comment. The first 15 minutes of the meeting are reserved for members of the public to address the commission on items that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission.
I'm sorry,
Oh.
Chairman, can we just have a vote? I know that's moved and second,
Oh, I'm
usually there's
sorry.
a vote after that.
Okay,
Roll call. Commissioner Jasneel Singh,
Yes.
Commissioner J.T. Mann,
Yes.
Commissioner Steve Bassi,
Yes.
Vice Chair Jose Flores,
Yes.
Chair Renee Mendonça.
yes.
Motion approved by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you for catching that, Miguel.
Oh, you're welcome.
The first 15 minutes of the meeting are reserved for members of the public to address the commission on items that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission. Speakers shall be limited to 5 minutes. Speakers will be asked to identify themselves and state the subject of their comments. If the subject is an item on the agenda, The chairperson has an option of asking the speaker to hold the comment until that item is called. Comments on items listed as a public hearing on the agenda shall be held until the hearing is opened. The commission is prohibited by law from taking any action on matters discussed that are not on the agenda, and no adverse conclusion should be drawn if the commission does not respond to public comment at that time. So do we have any public comments?
You can ask if there's any public comments on the phone, or if there's any public comments from the
Or
members of the
public?
audience.
Do we
Yeah.
have any comments on the items on the agenda? No? Okay, then we're going to close out the public comment. Item number 4, written correspondence. There is none at this time. Item number 5, approval of minutes. We do not have an approval of minutes at this point. So that item doesn't need to be addressed. Number 6, conflict of interest declaration. Discussion of the Political Reform Act and conflicts of interest. This item will be presented by the City Attorney's Office and no action is required. Members of the Planning Commission will declare an actual or apparent conflict of interest before discussions of or decisions about any matters in which they are or anyone with whom they have a close personal relationship could directly or indirectly benefit, or where such a benefit can be perceived.
City Attorney Maria Sullivan will be providing a presentation to the commission.
Thank you all and good evening. I am Maria Sullivan with the City Attorney's Office. I'm new to the city's office, so I have not met most of you. It's a pleasure to be here and good to see all of you tonight. I put together a conflict of interest training. I'm going to try and go through it as quick as possible. I will go over some of the relevant slides and then open it up for comments or questions for any of the commissioners who have questions about any of the information. Okay. So this is basically what we're going to discuss, just legal limitations on the perks and advantages of the office and conflicts of interest. To familiarize yourselves with the laws. A lot of these we can go through super quickly, sorry, Martha. I wish I had a clicker. So the first section is the personal financial interests and fair processes. Oh, perfect. There we go. Basically, if I can impart anything to you tonight, it's to speak to the city attorney about any conflicts as soon as you have any indication that you might have a conflict or even just a question. It never hurts to reach out because it's so much easier to prevent the conflict on the front end than try and defend the action on the back end. The longer we have to research a conflict, the better. As you guys all know, and you took an oath to your office, that you owe your loyalty to the public and not to your own personal financial interests. The FPPC is really the ultimate authority when it comes to conflict of interest advice for the Political Reform Act. So even if the city's attorney's office gives you advice on certain matters, you're best insulated if you go to the FPPC and get an official opinion. And that can sometimes take up to a month, I should add. So that's why we like to get the information early if we have to send a request to the FPPC. Conflicts of interest are very technical and they usually involve financial matters. However, being public officers, you'll have to remember that perception matters and perceptions of conflicts are a big deal too. So first, we'll talk about the Political Reform Act. And quickly, the rule is that you may not make or participate in making decisions on behalf of the government that would have a reasonably foreseeable material financial effect on your financial interests or your immediate family's financial interests. And immediate family is defined as your spouse, your children, your parents. It does not extend to siblings or in-laws. A business entity in which you have an investment worth at least $2,000 or where you hold an office, such as a director or officer or partner, will provide a conflict. If you own real property in which you have a direct or indirect interest of at least $2,000 that's the subject of something being discussed at the commission, you can have a real property conflict of interest. And that's if the property itself is being discussed. I know that there was some talk about proximity to projects. Any commissioner who owns property within 500 feet of an item on the agenda, a proposed project, is usually determined to have a conflict of interest. The only way to get out of that is to prove by clear and convincing evidence that you meet an exception. However, oftentimes exceptions to the rule are more common than the rule itself. So the FPPC here will consider many of the factors under the 500-foot clearance that they do up to 1,000 feet. I'm going to explain this in more practical terms here in just a minute. Just trying to get through the slides so I can get to where I want to be. Okay, so I'll leave it there for a second. So, in terms of location of property, it usually will have effect on properties that you own. It's not leasehold interest, so your primary residence or any other properties that you own, if they're within 500 feet, you're determined to have a conflict of interest. And under those circumstances, you would be expected to recuse yourself, to remove yourself from the room, and not participate in the vote. However, there are exceptions. First, you have to talk about the materiality of what's being discussed. So if it's something broad that affects the entire community, like tax hikes or water rates, those are things that are not going to be considered material because they affect everybody, and it doesn't have a unique effect on the commissioner. However, for purposes of planning commissioners, things like general plan amendments, zoning changes, development plans, all of those things are considered material in decision-making. When you authorize the sale or purchase of land or modify assessments or fees, those are all material. Issuance denial of licenses or permits, construction of or improvements to streets or systems like water, sewage, storm drainage, all of those are going to be considered material. I'll find my note on that one. So an exception is if a significant segment of the public is affected and your interest is not unique compared to that of the public. And this is so confusing, and it took me forever to wrap my mind around when I first started learning about all of this. So let's say you want to adopt some rules related to ADUs. And so everybody in the neighborhood is eligible to build an ADU on their property. That would be considered the public generally. So if the city decides, okay, we're going to charge anybody who wants to build an ADU on our property $500. In that situation, you would not have to declare a conflict because everybody in the neighborhood has the option to build an ADU on the property, and they're all going to be charged that same amount. And so since it applies to everybody equally, then you would meet the public generally exception. However, if it were to have a unique effect on you, then it would be different. So let's say, same rule, $500 for any ADU that you want to build on the property. However, if your ADU is going to have a pool, then it's going to be $1,000. Well, let's say your ADU is the only ADU that would have a pool, and for whatever reason, nobody else would want it or be eligible. So that is a unique effect to you, because it only applies to your property. And so in that case, you would have a conflict, and you would want to recuse yourself from such a situation. For decisions involving your personal residence, the public generally is considered 15% of residential real property within your district, and I understand that the city of Livingston does not have districts, so it would be within the city. So if 15% of the residential real property will be affected by the decision, then that would be considered the public generally. For other properties, commercial properties, then the public generally exception increases to 25%. So it would be 25% of businesses or commercial development, but they lowered it for residential to 15%. The same rule applies up to 1,000 feet. However, they give you a little bit more leeway up to 1,000 feet. So within 500 feet, you're pretty, that's where you're going to really concern yourself that there's going to be a problem. Up to 1,000 feet, there's a little bit of wiggle room generally, and any time within this area, if it's going to be a significant decision, this is where I would always recommend we get an opinion from the FPPC, because like I said, there are so many exceptions that can kind of undo the rule that it's hard to say one way or the other. So it's better to get an opinion that's going to stick, which is what the FPPC does. And like I said, it would be just you, your spouse, your parents, your kids, not your in-laws, not your brothers and sisters. You can also have a conflict if you have a source of income that amounts to at least $500 received within 12 months before the decision is made. Or if you've received a gift from someone bringing an item to the commission in an amount of at least $630 within a year, that would provide a conflict. And this is just an example of a violation where a council member voted to obtain a state grant to extend water and sewer lines where he owned real property, and he was fined $4,000 because he should have recused himself. Okay, so we talked about the public generally exception. The other is the legally required participation. Legally required participation is when you don't have a quorum and you have to vote, but it doesn't apply in any situation in which you don't have a quorum. It's when you can't get a quorum. So if the quorum could be met by bringing in an alternate, then you can't use the legally required participation exception. You can't use it to break a tie. And then when you do have a conflict, you have to segment the items on the agenda. So basically you deal with the items that you can participate in, and then you rearrange the items on the agenda in which a council member cannot, or a commissioner cannot participate. You'll move that to a portion of the agenda where that commissioner can leave the room and the business can go on. If you're disqualified, you have to state on the record that you have a conflict and explain briefly why. Then you have to leave the room and not discuss any aspect of the decision. You can participate as a member if you're speaking about an item that affects your personal economic interests. So if you realize you have a conflict because your property is going to be affected. You recuse yourself, but you feel passionately about this situation. You can go to public comment and say, hey, I really agree or disagree with this as, an individual, but then you have to leave. And there's a difference between disqualification and abstention. Disqualification is very technical, and it happens when you have an actual conflict of interest. I know a lot of elected officials can feel uncomfortable about voting on things because they don't like the perception. Like, people might think that they're conflicted when you're really technically not. So sometimes people will say, I don't want to vote on it because, my constituents will think that I have a conflict. And in that case, you would abstain from the vote. You wouldn't be disqualified. Disqualified is a legal designation. Abstention is where you make a judgment call. Let's see. So this talks about, this is just another example of an individual who was fined for a violation. The next one is contract conflicts of interest, and those are specifically directed at contracts in which you have a financial interest. So anything that you negotiate with any member of the public, you're going to have a conflict. You're absolutely prohibited from having a financial interest in a contract. And they have really strict enforcement of these. It will make the whole decision by the entire board void if somebody with a conflict votes on a contract. So it's super important never to participate in any kind of decision-making or voting on contracts that you have a financial interest in. Like this says, it's absolutely prohibited, and it's any financial, it's not like a minimum amount. Like, if you have any kind of financial interest in it, you cannot participate. Like I said, the contract is void. The official has to return the money, and you can be criminally prosecuted. Here, this is another weird one, remote interests and non-interests. So if the interest is not yours, but you're like renting a property and the contract is gonna benefit your landlord, that's considered a remote interest, and it has different rules. A non-interest is if you are like a board member of a nonprofit and it's gonna affect your nonprofit. That's usually considered not a conflict. Remote interests are a conflict, and you usually have to abstain from voting. This is the common law rule, so this is bias or personal interest, so it doesn't have anything to do with money, it just has to do with your feelings on the subject. If you feel passionately for or against something, then that can create a conflict because you're supposed to be acting on behalf of the public, and in doing so, you have to be disinterested and neutral in your decision-making. This just warns you about social media, not to get involved in expressing opinions, especially when you're acting as a quasi-judicial body in permit applications and whatnot. To be careful what you say or like or comment on social media. And then these are general restrictions, the kinds of things that you're going to report on your Form 700. Honoraria, I don't know how many people get hired to go speak at colleges. I've never been hired to speak at a college, but it's prohibited. You can, it's not prohibited to speak, it's prohibited to accept money to do so. Misuse of public resources, so you cannot send communications out on city letterhead or post on, the city's social media page about things that are personal to you. And this applies in situations where elected officials want to do campaigning. A lot of times they will misunderstand that they can't do their campaigning on city letterhead or city social media sites or you can't even use city resources to do it. So you can't do it on city time or use their copy machine or anything that is associated with the city. So as I mentioned before, you have to be a neutral, disinterested decision maker and not advocate in your official capacity. You can do that in your individual capacity, but you have to be very careful how you separate the two. You cannot solicit campaign funds when you're running for office, especially not from city employees or officers. The gift of public funds, it's hard to think of a lot of situations where this will apply, but it's basically using city money for things that don't benefit the public generally. So I don't know if you're ever in a situation where you have city money to give away, but you're not allowed to. And then the Form 700s, this tells you about the kinds of things that you should report. You guys are considered code filers as commission members. You report when you declare your candidacy and assume your office, and then every year after, and then within, I think, 30 or 60 days after leaving office, the Form 700s are due on April 1st of every year, and I believe they're provided to Martha or Monica. These are common reportable interests. I'll leave this up for a second because sometimes it's helpful to know. Business entities, rental properties, any kind of salaries you receive outside of the government, gifts within certain limits, travel payments, stocks, but not IRAs or 401ks. Things you don't have to report: insurance policies, bonds, 401ks, savings and checking account, your personal residence, you don't have to report. A government salary, you don't have to report your holiday gifts from family. So yeah, I think the key to keep in mind is just how would you want to be represented by others if you were a member of the public? Or always remain neutral and serve the best interests of the community as a whole. All right, any questions for me?
I do. In terms of the 15% that would be affected, which I guess 15% of the community as a whole, then that throws that exception or brings that exception into play?
Yes. Yeah, so for the public generally, if whatever is being considered would affect 15% of either the residences or businesses, I mean, it depends on what kind of property interest we're talking about. Yeah, 15% of the entire city, because you don't have specific districts here.
So that, like, let's say you have a property that's within 500 feet of something. Mm-hmm. And a community our size, 15%, would that take it out of play?
No, if 15% meet it, then you can participate.
Okay. So how do we determine where that 15% lies in compared to that property?
Well, it can be tricky, and it completely depends on what's being discussed. So, like with my ADU example, if every home is eligible to have an ADU, then obviously that's going to exceed 15%. And so you'll be able to participate because the public generally meets that exception. If every ADU with a pool is being discussed and only 5 people have it, including you, then that would not meet 15% and you would not be able to participate.
Okay.
Does that help? Yeah.
That does.
Okay. Any other questions?
Any other commissioners?
I do, and thank you for your time today.
Yeah.
One of the items tonight is going to be on a classroom that's being built on at a Sikh temple. That site is within 500 feet from my primary home. Would that 15% still apply to that, saying it's for the greater community, as far as a nonprofit, or what would you recommend at this time?
So it would be, I mean, the 15%, this is your personal residence?
Correct.
Okay, yeah, it applies all the time. So if the decision being made about the Sikh temple, would apply to 15% of all property owners, then you would meet the exception. I have no way tonight to know how many property owners it would affect. So it's hard for me to make an on-the-spot analysis about whether or not you'd have a conflict. That would take a little bit of research, but you can always.
Well, the view there would be the worshipers that attend the temple would be at least 15% of the community, not so much that it will affect the population.
But yeah, it doesn't, but when we talk about the effect, we're talking about the effect on ownership of land, though, and not like people individually. So it would be, how does it affect the property? How does this decision affect all the other property in the city? Is 15% of all the other property going to be affected by this? And if it's a localized decision, probably not. So, I mean, like I said, it's hard to say right now whether or not there's going to be a conflict. If you feel like, I would say that this is one of those situations where if you feel like there could be a perception of a conflict, then it'd be better to abstain.
Understood.
To
Thank you.
participate, yeah. Anything else? Okay.
Okay, then we'll move along to the consent calendar. Matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion and one vote. There will be no separate discussion on these items. If discussion is desired, a member of the public or a member of the Planning Commission may request an item to be removed from the consent calendar, and it will be considered separately. There are none.
We probably need to do that first. Is there any conflict of interest?
I apologize, I thought I read item B already of number 6. Members of the Planning Commission will declare an actual or apparent conflict of interest before the discussion or decisions about any items in which any or anyone with whom they have a close personal relationship could directly or indirectly benefit, or where such a benefit could be perceived. I think I read that, but I read it again. At this point, then, do any of the members have a conflict of interest? Is that what we're asking? Does any of the, I'm sorry, I thought I read that. So do any members of the Planning Commission have a conflict of interest?
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to declare a conflict of interest to item H, public hearing for the classrooms being built at the Sikh temple. Am I still allowed to make a comment on that section, or if I abstain, I have to remove myself?
So what will happen is when we come to that, and one thing I might recommend is that we rearrange the agenda so that comes last. But you can make a comment as a citizen, not as a commissioner. When the item arrives, you'll say again on the record that you have a conflict and explain why. And then you can go and make a public comment on it, and then leave.
Very good, thank you.
As a citizen, yeah.
Maria, I was kind of under the impression that items A through G, Miguel will be commenting on those, but those will not be topics this evening. Okay. Okay. So.
I missed that, sorry. So what was your?
I was telling Maria that because the conflict of interest is coming from item number H, 8H, but items 8A through 8G or through 8H is something that Miguel will be addressing because we will not be discussing those this evening. That answers your question on your conflict of interest?
Yeah, so H will be discussed.
H will be discussed,
H
yes.
and I will be discussed.
A through G will not.
Correct.
Okay. So at this point, you do not have a conflict of interest? Right. Okay. So I guess we're okay to move forward now? Do we have any comments from the public? Anybody on the phone? So we can move forward with the consent calendar? Matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion and one vote. There will be no separate discussion on these items. If discussion is desired, a member of the public or a member of the Planning Commission may request an item to be removed from the consent calendar, and it will be considered separately. And at this time, there are none. So number 8, public hearings. As we've been discussing, items A through G, Miguel will now comment on.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the commission, members of the public. Miguel Galvez, contract city planner, City of Livingston. At the Planning Commission meeting of January 13, 2026, the Planning Commission considered the housing element update and a series of general plan amendments and rezones regarding the housing elements sites. At that meeting, the Planning Commission was discussing conflicts of interest, and because of conflicts of interest, the item was continued to today's meeting, February 10th, 2026. In the meantime, before this meeting arrived, city staff was interested in trying to consider this item, and we scheduled a special planning commission meeting for January 28th. However, at that 28th meeting, public notice was not published in the paper according as we had requested, and so the special planning commission meeting of January 28th had to be canceled. Because we had the meeting canceled on the 28th, and actually some folks came to the meeting on the 28th, I think there was about 10 individuals that came, it caused confusion. And so at this time, even though the Plan Commission recommended this item be continued today, and the special meeting that was scheduled and canceled, it caused confusion. So at this point, staff is recommending that the public hearings that were continued to this date be continued indefinitely. Staff will be providing a new public hearing notice and notifying all the residents of the surrounding property once this item is ready for to be considered in a public hearing. So at this point, items A through G will not be considered. The community can come and speak about the continuance item. I mean, if they have any concerns with the item being continued, but we have no items to present for the housing element update or the housing element rezone general plan amendments. That concludes my report on items, public hearings, items A through G.
Then you can go on.
So you may want to go out to the public, see if there's anyone that's interested in talking about the continuance, but at this point, staff will be coming back with an item under a new public hearing process for these items.
Okay, and Miguel, since we have a conflict of interest on H, can we move I up and take care of I and then discuss H, and so that our planning commissioner can leave for that one?
You can. Before that, I would just suggest you open the public hearing to see if anyone wants to talk about the continuance.
Okay. Would anybody like to discuss the continuance of the items 8A through 8G that Miguel was discussing? Anybody on the phone? No. Then I guess we're okay to move forward. So then we'll go to item I. The public hearing of parcel map PM 2025-01, Plan Site and Development Review, SPDR 2025-04, exception of subdivision ordinance EXCPN 2025-01, a request for a PM SPDR and EXCPN to divide a parcel into two parcels and develop two single-family homes with an accessory dwelling unit ADU.
Excuse me, Chairman Mendonca. It would be appropriate for the commission to just make a move to reorder the agenda items. So if you may ask for a motion to move item 8I before 8H, then we can proceed as
Okay.
requested.
With the circumstance, the matters that need to be, can we get a vote to move a motion to move 8I before 8H on the agenda?
Yeah, I'll make that motion to move I before H.
And I'll second that motion.
Martha, can we get a roll call?
For the record, Steve Bassi motioned,
And Jose Flores.
and Jose Flores second. JT. Okay.
Oh, JT.
Okay. Roll call. Commissioner Jasneel Singh,
Yes.
Commissioner JT Mann,
Yes.
Commissioner Steve Bassi,
Yes.
Vice Chair Jose Flores,
Yes.
Chair Renee Mendonca.
Yes.
Motion approved by a vote of 5-0.
So now we can move on to I, correct?
Yes, thank you for your patience.
That's okay, no, learning all of the pomp and circumstance. So, do I need to read that again, Miguel?
No, Mrs. Jayla Smith of JB Anderson Land Use Planning will be providing a presentation on this item this evening.
Okay.
Jayla, take it away. Here's a pointer if you need one. Okay.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Jayla Smith, Contract Planner at the City of Livingston, and I'll be presenting the parcel map site plan design review and exception to the subdivision ordinance for the project on East Avenue. So the proposed project is located at 612 East Avenue and is 0.36 acres in size. Currently has a general plan land use designation of low-density residential and a zoning designation of R1 low-density residential. So this is a vicinity map of the project. So as you can see, it's located again on East Avenue, just north of the 99 freeway. The proposed project includes a division of the vacant parcel into two new parcels in order to develop a single-family residence that's 918 square foot in size with an attached ADU that would also be 918 square foot in size, and there would be a single-family home and an attached ADU on both parcels, so a total of 4 units. Oh, wait, go back. So the proposed project will connect to existing city utilities that are located in the rear alleyway behind the proposed project site, and new driveways, landscaping improvements, and a new fencing will be installed on the project. So I have a couple of photos here. So this is the proposed project, kind of backed out a little bit to the street. And then I have a picture here, it's a little bit more zoomed in. So as you can see, the parcel is currently vacant. And then this is an image of the parcel from the alleyway behind the parcel, so a view towards the front of the, towards the street side. And then this is the image, as you can see, there are currently sidewalks, but there would be a new driveway, 2 new driveways installed for each of the parcels. And then this is just an image of the alleyway from the, as you can see, looking down towards where you're going to the project site. So, and this map is just a screen grab of the plot plan for the proposed project. So as you can see, parcel 1, this parcel here, would be 7,922 square foot in size, and it would have, it's a little bit hard to see, but the lot width in the front would be 53.39 feet, and then it has a lot depth of 148.37 feet. Parcel 2, similarly in size, would be 7,921 square feet. Again, same lot width of 53.39 feet, and then a little bit of a variation of the lot depth with 148.35 feet. So this is the floor plan of the main house of the single-family dwelling with the attached ADU. Both the main house and the ADU will have 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, a living room and unit laundry, a kitchen and dining area, and each parcel will also include 3 off-street parking spaces. And so it's the same floor plan for each parcel. Here is the front elevation. So this would be the view of the main house from the street, or if you're looking the street towards the property, this would be the front elevation. This would be the rear elevation, again, if you're looking from the alleyway, and this would be the ADU. That's what you're seeing here. This will be the right elevation. So this unit here would be the proposed ADU, and then this unit would be the main single-family home. Then this is the left elevation. So here would be the main house, and then this would be the ADU. So in addition to the parcel map and site plan and design review, this application also includes an exception to the subdivision ordinance to allow for the development of the 2 parcels at the lot width of 53.39 feet. So the zoning code requires that parcels located within the R1 district have a minimum of 70 feet. However, exceptions to these regulations can be made under section 6-11 of the subdivision ordinance, as long as the following findings are met. So the proposed project, the first finding there, the proposed project presents an exceptional circumstance that affects the property, as the property has the necessary depth and square footage to meet the requirements for the 2 lots, as the minimum lot size is 7,000 square feet. However, as stated, the lot width would only be 53.39 feet, so it wouldn't meet that 70-foot minimum. And for the second finding, as far as the exception is necessary to preserve the substantial property right and permit the enjoyment thereof. So the property is zoned for low-density residential, as previously stated, and the proposed project is proposing single-family dwellings with attached ADUs, and so it's consistent with what is allowed in the current zoning district. The third finding, so the property, the proposed project will not be detrimental to public safety, health, or welfare. Again, aside from the lot width, it meets all of the other development standards related to the minimum lot area, lot coverage, setbacks, parking, and height. It will be served by the current city utilities and poses no environmental impacts to traffic, noise, safety, or water quality. And for the last finding, the granting of the exception will not be injurious to or prevent the logical development of other property in the immediate area. This is an infill development that is already surrounded by single-family dwellings, so it will not impact the development of other properties in the area. So the proposed project meets the policies of the adopted general plan and housing elements, specifically these 3 policies. So the first policy in the land use element, this is to encourage infill development by having flexible design standards. So again, this application is requesting an exception, some flexibility in the lot width to allow for the development of this project. In the adopted housing element, it states to encourage a variety of housing types. So as stated, this will include not only a typical single-family dwelling, but also an attached ADU. So it adds that variety of housing types. And again, it is encouraging infill development. Again, this is surrounded by single-family dwellings, and it is also located where services and infrastructures are currently available, again, the existing city utilities. So let's just say the proposed project is eligible for a categorical exemption under Section 1533 of the CEQA guidelines, which is for infill development projects. So under this exception, if a project is consistent with the general plan and zoning, or generally consistent with general plan and zoning, can be served by existing utilities, is less than 5 acres in size, has no value to habitats for endangered species, is located in an urban location, and has no significant impacts related to traffic, noise, air, and water quality, then it is exempt from further environmental review. And these are conditions that the project does meet. So staff is recommending adopting the resolution to approve the site plan and design review, subject to the conditions of approval outlined in the resolution, and to adopt the resolution to recommend to the City Council approval of the parcel map and the exception to the subdivision ordinance, subject to the conditions outlined in the resolution. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
I think before we move forward, I was just going to see if the owner or the project manager was here on these, just to see if they had any comment. Okay. Would you like to come to the mic and speak on the subject, or? Yeah, I can. Is that how the answers to do it? Well, I was just seeing,
Okay, yeah, I don't mind. I can take the mic.
okay, thank you.
Thank you guys, everyone, for your time. Let me adjust this a little bit. Okay, there we go. My thought when I saw the property is that the lot was fairly large. And just for a single-family home, I don't know when they put that together if that was a remainder or if someone just wanted one of those lots to be bigger in width. And so I thought, I'm curious because the lots across the street are only 50 feet wide. Well, when I talked to Miguel about it, he says, yeah, well, those lots on that feet are 70 feet minimum. So we had a conversation about building there. The reason for the ADU is what I've noticed in these communities, especially when you have alley access, is people will almost always build something more in the back and then someone's living back there.
Right.
So here's an opportunity to actually build what looks just like a home in the front and in every way, and then have something nicely built in conjunction together all at the same time so that someone doesn't later on try to say, hey, we'll put a little garage or shack in the back, and then we'll have the mother-in-law, move back there. So I thought I'd take advantage of it. We built similar projects in Turlock and in Livingston, but this is the first time making a home with an ADU, a joined ADU. So I feel like it would be a great project. I'm excited about it, and I hope that you guys approve it so we can take it to the council. So.
Thank you for sharing that. Is there any other public comments? I did want to say, there has been a little bit of conversation with another colleague of mine, and sometimes when you have the residential units, single-family dwellings, and then you have something where you have an odd lot size like this, and we're being creative, because Livingston is working at the infill to provide affordable housing and housing, that there was a comment, well, is it gonna look a little strange? But we do have some property, I do believe, on 6th Street that basically has the same situation back here. And I think filling in the lot where you don't just have an empty lot, that has weeds growing and having to worry about it all the time, and to bring in the housing. And you're right, these days, families are looking for additional dwellings to put a mother-in-law in, a nephew, a child, because they're unable to afford a house of their own. And so I actually thank you for sharing that and bringing this project to us. And now, can I ask, are we going to be voting on this tonight, or?
Yes, it would be appropriate to open the public hearing and then hear comments, and then ask for commissioners' responses, and then you can ask for a motion to approve it. Now, there's two actions. One is to approve the site plan design review application. That authority is delegated to the Planning Commission. The exception has to go to the City Council, so that's a recommendation. So it would be, staff would be recommending approval of the site plan design review, and would be recommending approval of a resolution recommending the City Council approve the exception to the subdivision ordinance. So hopefully that makes sense.
That's a mouthful, and I'll try to remember that.
Thank you.
So at this time, again, I've opened it up to public comment, and anybody on the phone or here, I'm not seeing anything. So we're going to close the public comment. I'm going to then ask for the commissioners to vote to adopt the site plan.
Before you vote, just to see if there's any questions or comments from the commissioners, and then you can ask for
Okay.
a motion to take action either to approve or
So
deny them.
do any of the commissioners have any questions or that about this project?
I actually have a question. We're calling this an attached ADU, but I have the understanding the ADUs have to be a specific size, different from the actual main home, even if it's attached, to be considered an ADU. So why would we call this an ADU, not a duplex? Because technically it's a duplex. I would space the same on the fact that they're both the same size, the main dwelling and what we're calling an ADU.
Yes, ADUs, accessory dwelling units, they have three classifications. One is the junior ADU. That is a separate living quarters, like a studio that's incorporated within the existing footprint of the house. If I recall, that's limited to a size of 640 square feet. So that's a junior ADU. An attached ADU can be up to 1,000 square feet. If it matches the existing house, then, that's fine. If it's a detached ADU, completely separate, it can go up to 1,200 square feet.
Okay, but the main dwelling doesn't factor into that? So for example, if your main dwelling is 600 square foot and you're building an ADU that's 1,000 square feet, I think there's an exception to that, correct?
Yeah, we wouldn't reference it that way. We'd call the bigger house the main house and the smaller house the accessory dwelling unit, yeah. In this case, it does function like a duplex, but it meets our code standards.
Okay, well, I guess my only thing would be then is, does anything change? I mean, I know we're calling it an ADU, but if it was a duplex or an ADU, is there any code differences for the requirements of that building to be there?
No.
Okay, then that's all.
They still have to meet the uniform building code either way.
Does anyone else have any comments? Okay. Then I need to know if we're going to move forward, if we're going to get the motions to adopt this plan.
Yes, it would be appropriate to request the planning commission to make a motion to act on the proposed resolution.
Somebody going to is one of the planning commissioners going to make a motion to adopt this plan?
Yeah, I can make a motion to adopt this plan.
Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Martha, can we get roll call?
Roll call. Commissioner Jasneel Singh,
Yes.
Commissioner J.T. Mann,
Yes.
Commissioner Steve Massey,
Yes.
Vice Chair Jose Flores,
Yes.
Chair Renee Mendoza.
Yes.
Motion approved by a vote of 5-0.
Now can I get a recommendation to accept the exception so that that can move forward to the council?
I believe the motion made by Commissioner Jasneel was to approve both resolutions as proposed. So I think it's already been addressed.
Okay. So do we need to do another roll call?
No.
No. Okay. So then we're going to need to move on to item H, correct?
Correct.
And then at this point, one of our commissioners can step down.
Commissioners, first, we need to read the item off.
Oh, read the item before he leaves?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you can.
Okay, so now we're going to hear public hearing, item H, 8H, public hearing, site plan and design review application number SPDR 2025-3, the Sikh Temple, a request to develop a 1,340 square foot detached building for use as a Sunday school on property located at 2765 Peach Ave, APN number 023-080-013.
At this point, it would be appropriate for Commissioner J.T. Mann to step down or recuse himself from this item as he expressed a conflict of interest.
Thank you very much. May I make a comment here?
No, right, from here you will state your conflict and why you have a
Understood.
conflict, and then procedurally, you'll leave the days and make the comment from the podium.
Understood. I'm abstaining myself because of the proximity to my home, and that's the sole reason why I'm abstaining. Thank you.
I will begin the presentation as soon as the item comes up and as soon as Commissioner J.T. Mann is off the dais. Oh, okay, sorry.
Thank you very much. I would like to commend the committee, some of which is here with us tonight, and the Sangat at the Livingston Peace Street Gurdwara for expanding their footprint whilst still finding ways to serve the community. This seems to be a very impactful and well-received project by the community. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, I will begin with the presentation. Again, this is regarding site plan design review application number SBD 2025-03, the Sikh Temple Sunday School. The applicant, the Sikh Temple, located at 2765, is located on a property 3.9 acres. It's located generally at the northwest corner of Peach Avenue and Dwight Way. The general plan designation is low-density residential for the site. It has a zoning designation of R1, low-density residential. The project proposed, the applicants proposed construction of a 1,340 square foot, single-story accessory dwelling to be used as a Sunday school on the northern half of the property. The proposed building will include 2 classroom buildings, one of 356 square feet, the other of 350 square feet. It will be connected by a collapsible door. It will include a library. It will include 2 restrooms. It will also include exterior porch of 570 square feet. They are proposing to install 420 square feet of artificial turf between the building and the parking area. I will mention that there's a condition number 8 on the agenda report that references landscape plans, but condition number 8, as the applicants have mentioned to me, that they're not proposing to do any type of natural landscaping, so that condition number 8 will not be applicable, or requesting that. Anyway, The development of the site will remain unchanged. The operation of the Sunday school will be daily from 4 to 6 p.m. with 1 teacher, 3 volunteers, and approximately 20 students. Here's an image of the site. The properties to the north are developed with single-family homes. There's a 6-foot-high masonry wall. You can see that the interior of the property there is already developed with a parking lot, sidewalks. The proposed building, let me see if I can get this to work, will be located approximately right here. Here's another view from the parking lot. There are some additional play fields on site, so the proposed building will be between the wall, 10 feet from the property line, and it'll be between the wall and these play fields. Here's a little closer look there. Here's a vicinity map. As I mentioned, the properties to the north and properties to the west are developed with single-family homes. The properties to the east are located in the county. They're in agriculture production, as well as the properties to the south across Peach Avenue. They're also in row crop agriculture production. The site is mostly developed as a Sikh temple church. It has landscaping, it has parking lot, it has a sanctuary, it has kitchen, dining facilities, and other accessory uses on site. Here's the site plan of the property. You can see the location of the proposed building right here. This yellow area is the turf area. So that's basically it. The rest of the church is kind of truncated. It's located to the south. Here's the parking lot that will be serving it. It exists, and there's 2 gates. There's 1 gate here and 1 gate here that accesses Peach Avenue and accesses Dwight Way there. Here's our floor plan of the proposed building. As I mentioned, there are 2 classrooms with a collapsible wall. There's going to be a library, there's going to be bathrooms, and there's going to be an exterior porch there. Here's the elevations. Here's some more elevations, the south elevations. The west elevations toward the back, and the north elevations toward the north. When it comes to zoning, a community hall, community services building is a permitted use in the R1 zone only after a conditional use permit is approved. So that's, a church has to get a use permit approved with today's zoning code. The original Sikh temple was approved in 1991, and at that time it did not include the proposed detached building or a Sunday school, which is now being proposed as a use, an accessory land use to the church site. The purpose of the site plan application is to memorialize the operation of a classroom facility on the church property. The proposed building meets the city's development standards regarding setbacks, height, lot coverage, off-street parking, signage. The construction style elevations are consistent with the development of the church, of the surrounding areas. Staff is supportive of it. The 1990 general plan does not identify any land use policies or objectives for churches or public assembly land uses. That's unusual, but that's the case in this instance. The proposed general plan update will include some, but at this point, there's none for areas of public assembly. Environmental review, the project is eligible for a categorical exemption under the classification of constructions of structures under 2,500 square feet, as section 15303. So we're recommending that the project is exempt from CEQA. Staff recommends that the Plan Commission adopt Resolution 2026, approving the site plan design review 2025-03, subject to the conditions of approval contained in the resolution. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions.
Now we can open it up to public comment. Yes, come on up.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Sukhjit Tony Singh, 250 West Main Street, Woodland, and representing the management of Sikh Temple. First of all, we are very thankful to the city staff to bring this project for today's meeting. And we have gone through the conditions of approval. We are ready to comply with all the conditions while moving on to the construction documents, except for the planning division condition number 8 about the landscaping. Because we are not doing any site improvements, it's just a 1,330 square feet building. And the courtyard will be having a artificial turf. So we will request the commission to strike out this planning division condition number 8. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For the record, city staff is in agreement that condition number 8 can be struck and will not be necessary. It's a standard condition of approval, but the original plot plan proposed artificial landscaping, and no landscaping is proposed. No natural landscaping is proposed. So yeah, condition number 8 to the Plan Commission resolution can be stricken, and staff supports that.
Okay.
So any questions, I'm here to answer. Thank you so much.
No, I just want to say thank you for increasing your footprint here for your church and the community in that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay. Do any of the planning commissioners have any questions? I just asked for public comment.
I think
Oh.
there's more.
Public comment, I'm sorry, I missed you.
Good evening, my name is Scott Abraham. We own the property just adjacent to them, immediately to the east. We've owned that property since 1975. I'm the ranch manager. It's been in our family farm since then. We have other properties that are adjacent to schools, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with how farming works next to schools. But California has restrictions for agricultural uses of certain equipment within a quarter of a mile, and one of them is an air blast spray rig, which we will be using at this time of the year. So since that school is coming in, even though it is not a public school, it's a private school, it's just a matter of time before California moves that in with the public schools where we cannot use that equipment between the hours of 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. On a day like this where we need to be spraying to save our crop, our equipment has either got to be sitting until it's after 6 p.m. or we have to move it from another ranch. And every time we move equipment down the road, it is very risky, it is very time consuming, and it's expensive. So we would have to move equipment into that ranch, spray that ranch, and then turn around and move out again before 6 a.m. And I don't know if you're aware of that, but California also is looking at extending that out, further out to maybe a mile. And that would impact not just us. And this quarter mile just doesn't impact us. It impacts the grower immediately to the north, right across from the truck wash. It affects the grower to the south on the other side of Peach Avenue that has almonds as well. And anybody that's farming within a quarter mile right now is affected by this decision ability. We're not against education. Don't get me wrong, because my parents are both in the education field. So, but what we're concerned about is the use of our equipment and being able to farm in a time-like manner. It's, like I said, it's expensive, and it does impact our farming operation. We do own everything east except for about 7 acres there that is, I think, owned by the church across the street. But so this will affect basically our whole farming operation on the east side of Peach Avenue. And I'm having a problem. I'm understanding you guys they're considering it a Sunday school, but it's going to operate 7 days a week. So I'm not sure, could you clear that up for us? Because it almost sounds more like a daycare facility than anything else. And if it's a daycare facility, then that automatically falls into the public school system already. So then we're already locked into
the 6 PM to 6 AM. And with labor laws the way they are, our guys, we can't run them after 3:30 in the afternoon. So our guys are gone. So that means our equipment is either going to be sitting idle until the next day, which puts us out where we can't be spraying, or we're sitting on that equipment after we've run all day already. And it'll take us about 2 days to get across our ground. So that's kind of another limiting factor that we're having.
Can I ask you a question? Because
Absolutely.
I don't know anything about this law.
Sure.
But is it only affect during school hours, or is it just an 8 to 5?
It's 5 days a week. It's Monday through Friday. So we cannot run this equipment between the hours of 6 AM and 6 PM, but we can run on the weekends.
Okay, well, my question is it only during the school day? Because the hours
Yeah,
you're giving is
only-
kind of.
Yes, only during the school year. So
School
as
year
long-
and during the school.
As long as there's not students at that school
That was
site,
my question.
Right,
That's what I meant.
okay.
How often, Scott, would you use that equipment?
We've used that equipment twice already this year, and we're only into February, right? And now with rain coming on, and we've got bloom coming, so it may run another 2 or 3 times yet just in the next month. And then we've got other sprays during the year. And don't take me wrong on the spraying. A lot of it is foliar, so it's vitamins, it's boron, calcium, zinc. We're just feeding that tree. But even though it's those things that we're putting on, we're still restricted to those hours. And a lot of the materials that we use are very soft materials, but a lot of them that we are using, we're on a new program right now. It's sugar. It's a sugar-based program that we're using. And the reason we're using that program is because, I'm not sure if you're familiar, but insects don't have a pancreas. So they can't digest sugar. So as we pump that tree with sugar and they go in and attack that plant, they go into a diabetic coma, so that saves us from using a pesticide. So we're trying to be user-friendly, environmentally friendly, and also because we're so close to the city limits, those are programs that we've switched to. But even that restricts us because of the school zone area.
That's what I was just going to ask. Even with you changing
Yes.
the chemical to something that's much more friendly, it still restricts you on those hours.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that, because I was totally unaware of that, and I am very aware of your family and your parents, and their contribution, and to the school system and that. And so thank you for sharing that.
The other thing I'm going to add to it is, away from the spraying, is we know a lot of the people that go to that church, and during the growing season, they do have a number of weddings, and they do have a number of activities there, and we try our best to not farm that piece of property on that corner if there's a wedding. We try to work around that schedule the best we can, because you pretty much know when there's an activity coming, so we try to get things done ahead of it. So one, we reduce our noise, we reduce the dust, and just let them have a good day there, especially if they're getting married. We definitely don't want to ruin somebody's wedding day. So we are trying to do things to...
The neighborly way.
Yeah, we're trying to help every way we can, but we did feel that it was important that you guys are aware of the spray zone and the timing, and in agriculture, timing is everything.
Right.
It is very important. It is, a lot of these things are time sensitive.
So currently now, Scott, just so that I understand it, you don't have any restrictions on spraying and that because there is no school involved?
That is correct. That is correct.
Do
Just
any
something to
commissioners, other
consider.
commissioners have any questions for Mr.
Yeah,
Abraham?
No, I don't have any questions. I just have a general comment on the project. My understanding is, I go attend the Sikh temple there as well, but my understanding is the kids have been going there for years after school to learning the Punjabi language or the scripture. They've been attending there for years I think maybe even 4 or 5 years that they've been going after school. They're doing it in the main prayer hall, but I think this is just
But now I think when you allocate that as a school,
That's what I said, when you label it a school.
when you label it as school,
it
then
falls
it
under
falls
the-
under a whole different category.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be governed by the educational system. I don't think it's, in my opinion, I don't know, I could be totally wrong, and someone else can speak on it, but I don't think it's governed by the Merced County educational system or attached to any private, a church education system.
Hold on. The building is being classified as what type of occupancy?
I'm not sure.
Okay, because that'll be the thing, is the occupancy of the building is going to designate what's going to, and for childcare though, for childcare is community care licensing, not the.
Daycare would,
Well, that's a different
the
thing.
same requirements though, right?
Daycare falls under the same category, yes.
No, it's not a school though. It's under community care licensing, does all the
No,
daycares, but not the school.
What I'm saying
For
though
his
is
spraying.
day-
For your
daycare-
spraying?
Yes,
Yes,
mhm.
daycare
That's what
falls
I'm
under the
saying.
same file, yes.
Yeah. Maybe we can ask a question, is this, the kids that are attending the after-school at the church now, is it just a relocation of? So is it already, if that's the case, is it already a school? So that's,
That I couldn't answer
yeah,
that question.
so I think it's
But
just.
but they're now building a structure and they're going to call it a school, a Sunday school. So as soon as you put that title school on it, it falls into that category that now our rules change on our farming operation.
Scott, if you were to tell me how many acres that affects and what type of financial impact there would be?
Well, that farming.
Just approximately?
That farming operation is just short of 100 acres right there that we have that's going to be affected. Dollar value that would be affected there, I couldn't give you that number offhand right now. Because it's not just the loss of crop, it's expensive trying to grow that crop. There's got to be all incurred in that.
So you're saying that the 6 to 6 is the governing rule there?
Yes,
So these children are leaving at 6,
Yes.
but you could start spraying at 6?
yes. We are just doing what the law is telling us, and the law
Right.
is 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So 6:01, we could start.
I just did a quick little Google search here, but, and it took me to the AB, the Assembly Bill 1864, and it says, currently defined as a public K-1 through 12 or K through 12 school or a licensed daycare facility.
Yes, and that's what I said at the beginning, is that it's a private, we understand this is a private school, but it's just a matter of time before California sweeps private and puts it in with the public, then it all affects us. It affects private and public will affect us down the road somewhere along the line, is what we're saying.
So currently now that's saying public?
Yeah, what I'm
Yeah.
reading, if this is what Mr. Abraham's referring to, is it says that the regulation place restrictions on application methods and timing used to apply pesticides to agricultural fields within a quarter mile of a school site currently defined as a public K through 12 school or licensed childcare facility.
That is correct. That is correct.
So I think, and I appreciate the comment. My point of view is, we don't know what's to come, right? That's like, we don't know. How about it doesn't happen?
Well, our feeling is it's California, it will happen.
Yeah, it's hard to kind of gauge what is to happen in the future, right? Without,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But we wanted you to be aware of our
yeah,
concern,
no, I
okay?
100% agree.
And to also say that we are going to do everything we can to do our best in that area, even though it's a private school. And that is an issue that's, if they're saying it's going to start at 4 and it's going to end at 6, well, then it's a private school, then maybe what we need to do is spray until 3:59 and then pull out of that field and go somewhere else. But but we feel that it's our responsibility to do the best we can around any school.
Yeah.
And we have a piece of property out on Longview that is right across the street from the Mennonite school, and that's a private school. And we do the best over there too. We try to spray on the weekends. We try to spray, on days that they're not having class. And we'll do what we can over here as well. But we wanted you to be aware of the situation that we're up against.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for
as
bringing
well,
that.
Yes,
okay?
thank you.
Yeah, that's great.
So-
Thank you, and
Thank you.
and thank you for continuing to farm, because without that, I mean, you feed the world. So it's important that we hear from you as well.
But I wanted you also to be aware that it doesn't just affect us, it affects everybody. If that rule changes, it affects everybody that's within that quarter mile, and that's even I think it's an Indian family that owns the piece on the south side of Peach Avenue, the orchard right there on both sides of Dwight
Is
Way
that
there, I
North
think it
Dakota?
is. I'm not sure who it is, but that property's just changed hands here in the last year. But it affects them as well as us, and it affects the Cabral family there across from the truck stop. And so those are just things that need to be considered when looking at a project like this. So thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have one more. Farm Bureau.
Good evening. Brianne Vandenberg, Executive Director, Merced County Farm Bureau. I just, as you guys were talking, I would agree that's what the code says right now. But texted our Ag Commissioner really quickly, and as of 12/31/2026, it will be any public or private school with 6 or more students. So he's checking on the definition under the education code, but just to add some context to this discussion, as of 12/31/2026, it would potentially take into that as well.
Thank you for sharing that with us.
If I may just provide a potential solution, I was going to ask if it would be possible for the neighbors to coordinate timing of spraying with the operation of even though it's Sunday school, I think of Sunday school as being religious education, not necessarily a public school. But if it's possible for the farmer and the folks at the church to coordinate which days it would be spraying, which days they may not have Sunday school, or they might move to a location, that's a potential solution, so the farmers can continue to farm, and maybe the students or the participants may have a day off or have services elsewhere. It's a potential solution.
I definitely understand the concern of the farmer. I have seen some, and as you talk about, Miguel, coordinating in that, I've seen some horrible overspray claims. And in California, basically everything's considered a pesticide or a chemical, or some forever chemicals or that. And if some child were to get sick or something, then it's going to fall back on the farmer and your insurance policies. So coordinating that, and I think they're all doing the neighborly thing in that. Any more comments? Okay. So at this point, I think we'll look towards the commissioners to recommend the motion, or a motion to move forward to approve the approval of Resolution 2026XX, approving the site plan and design review application number 2025-3 to develop a 1,340 square foot building addition to be used as a Sunday school consisting of 2 classrooms with a bathroom facility, subject to conditions of approval.
Before we go there, I would like one of the committee members from the temple there to kind of maybe come up and talk about, are we going to annually enroll these kids into the education system, or if you want to come up here and speak, that'd be good.
Yeah, maybe more.
Is it
I
going to
might
be
like
a
more
school
of a
setting? Is there
detailed-
going to be a principal? Is there teachers? Is there an annual, is there an enrollment, or is there coursework, or is it the teachings of the religion?
Basically, for every religious place of worship. So this kind of activity is an accessory to keep our youth coming up. Like as the generation changes, we need to impart the values, the culture, and especially about our scripture to pass on these as well as the ritual to the next generation. So I mean, name-wise, it's a Sunday school, but it's a kind of our obligation as a senior and the kids' right to get that kind of education. So Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., I believe it's fine. But on Sundays, as a planning director, Miguel, he suggested, like, there can be, as Steve just mentioned, like, during the weddings and all that stuff, so they try to coordinate with the temple. So same thing can happen here. But it's not a kind of school education, it's a religious education. So we can find some other alternative word for this. This is a basically, as per my understanding, so education gives us knowledge, but the knowledge, to bring the knowledge to the wisdom, so we need some kind of religious touch. So we are trying to bring our kids how to try to understand what's good and bad through our religious scriptures, correct? So this is something separate from the traditional school education, public school education system. Yes, in future, if we come here for a charter school, then yes, these rules apply. But it's our duty and to impart that religious wisdom to our kids. So, and especially in an environment, because right now they are sitting, as Commissioner JT, he mentioned, like this thing is going on inside the assembly hall. So, so we are just trying to give the kids a separate environment so that they can focus because before coming to this meeting, so I also went to the assembly hall to pay my obeisance to their scripture. So there were like 5 to 7 kids, they were sitting inside, and there was one volunteer. So it's not a kind of teachers, paid teachers, which will be giving those instructions. Those are the volunteers. So, I mean, it's a kind of setup which is accessory to any religious institution. So, I mean, in the papers it's a school, but I would request the Commission to add some kind of additional condition, and let's try to give our next generation the right to learn and to bring their knowledge to the level of the wisdom. Thank you so much.
So if the wording changes to a religious hall or religious, it's not going to change anything on the spraying because we're still going to have children there in that, correct?
I'm looking at the law right now, and it applies to kindergarten, elementary, or secondary school. Right now, it's public, and I confirm that beginning in December, it will also apply to private, but the question would be how you would define this school, because this is specific to kindergarten, elementary, or secondary level school, so, and that would take further
So
looking
changing the
into.
name doesn't help in any shape or form? or
No,
what?
it's the function of the school, so,
Right.
and I think that if, it depends on the curriculum. If it's simply,
This is why I asked about occupancy, because I know just under the fire code, Sunday schools kind of have requirements because of the type of occupancy that the building's going to be used under. So we can't call it a place of worship because that's not what we're doing. We're using it like a Sunday school. Catholics do it all the time. We have a, here at the Catholic Church, does it all the time. They have to meet those requirements for the safety of the patrons that are in that building. So when we're talking about the occupancy, it factors into that because that's what you're using that building for. When you insure it, you're basing it on the occupancy. What is the purpose of the building? And so allowing them to change its name isn't going to help the matter because ultimately they're still using it for that purpose.
So other than making sure, before we move forward, that the owners, the farmer, and the owners or the members of the church, the elders of the church, are communicating on the times of spraying, that's all we can do.
Yeah,
If we want to move forward with this. And I have to say that farmers do get busy at certain times of the years and they have a lot of responsibilities. So I don't think it should always be the farmer that has to reach out to the school when they're saying, we're going to spray. During certain times of the year, the temple should know that they need to reach out to you and find out when is going to be the time that you're spraying. No set time? Oh, it can be.
You want to make a comment at the?
I'm sorry. Yeah,
podium,
David,
please?
you want to come up?
I'm David Abraham. I'm Scott's brother. We farm 400 acres. We have 2 ranches that adjoin 2 schools. One's a private, one's a public. Public is a pain in the butt. We got to not only abide by the time frame that we can spray, we also have to send out chemical lists of products that we will be spraying with every year. And there's no guarantees that when you go to spray that field that there isn't, even on the weekends, there's school activities, there's soccer. There's an FFA animal project next to our field. Private school it's a private, it's a Mennonite. I think this thing is going to turn out to be the same thing. It's going to become a school. And we're not against it, but it comes back, it becomes a burden to farm. It's already a burden. We farm along Peach Avenue. We farm along West Side Boulevard, thoroughfares, in and out of town, out to the freeway. We basically spray all the time at night. And that's after we put in a 12-hour day. And we're spraying until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, maybe to 5 or 6. And then we start our day again. So I don't think changing the wording is going to matter. It's still a school. And they do have the right to do what they want to do, but it shouldn't be a burden on us to tell them when we're going to be spraying, because we don't know from day to day where we're going to be. Weather becomes an issue. It may be windy, so you can't spray when you think you're going to go out and spray. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that.
I do have a question, a comment, and a concern. So thank you for sharing. It's good to learn the background of what struggles you guys deal with or the complex issues. At the same time, from our perspective, right, we look at it as, okay, falls within the law or whatnot, and, where do we make that fair judgment? But is there some other tool or some other resource in the city that says, hey, you've called this a Sunday school and you're gonna operate X, Y, Z? Is there another layer of verification that this needs to go through to say, okay, vet it out? Like, all right, this is your intention of this property. You've called it a school. These are the zoning or fire restrictions or whatnot, right? Is there that additional layer that needs to be looked at, and then it comes and says, okay, we've checked all these boxes, it's not gonna impact your farming, therefore, we can make a decision, right? I don't know, I'm asking. Anybody that can,
Miguel?
Yeah, the only additional layer, if the Plan Commission approves the item tonight, would be through the building department. The building department will make sure it meets the building codes for the occupancy that is required. I mean, in terms of mitigation, it's really not an environmental issue like in terms of CEQA, but some sample mitigation might be like developing landscaping that might help buffer any overspray, things like that might go along the fence line or something like that, or some type of material that might help protect the residents or the occupants at the site. From a staff perspective, regardless if it's a school or the property is a high people-intensive use, so even people attending, the services there will be subject to the same type of spray, not necessarily something that's limited to the students. And as an existing use, and there's always conflicts between existing uses, the church here and the farming practices, so it's always try to, as I say, try to coordinate, try to communicate when you might have potential for whether it's overspray or things that might be damaging to human health. So to answer your question directly, the next level of review would be the building permit. Other than that, we won't get into, is it being operated as a parochial school, a religious school? It's a facility that will have certain levels of occupancy. As long as it meets the building code standards, then they can proceed forward with that.
okay, just one more comment. So you mentioned that there's an ask for an exemption for number 8 that has to do with landscaping, right?
Yes, condition number 8 talks about submitting a landscape plan,
Okay.
but they're proposing to install artificial turfing. They're not proposing to install additional landscaping on the site. Typically, when we apply conditional approvals to the whole site, usually there's no landscaping on the site, but the church already is developed, I would say, with the parking lot, and the church is probably 70% developed, and there's landscaping throughout the site.
Sure.
They're proposing artificial turf, so they're not going to put any sod or anything like that. And so they requested that condition number 8 be restricted, requiring them to install additional landscaping. And since they're proposing artificial turf, staff does not have any concern with removing that condition.
How does that fit into the, what we just talked about, the spraying of chemicals and requiring additional landscaping to absorb some of that to protect the?
Yeah, I threw that up as a potential solution to help mitigate that. I would defer to the applicant that's here. They would be interested to voluntarily installing some type of IV or something like that along the fence line to help mitigate, reduce any exposure to sprays. Again, that's just a suggestion. They're not required to do so. Again, for me, it's a church service, and they're spraying during church services. There's a number of people that are going to be probably greater than 20% or 20 persons that would be affected. So I would reach out to the property owner, the church, see if they're interested in perhaps installing some additional landscaping that would be subject to a landscape approval. We'd have to review the irrigation system and the plants and things like that, landscape plan. But that's one additional potential condition that would help reduce exposure of the attendees at this church site from any agriculture operations. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, that does. And specifically, since right now, as speaking law-wise, it's not under a K through 12 or, it doesn't fall under that. So I may be thinking of something that that, again, as Steve mentioned, hasn't happened yet, right? Thank you.
Miguel, just to clarify something, so mitigating the overspray or when spraying is going on, if there are members of the church there and the temple there, that is not a requirement, and it is in none of the topic that we're discussing right now.
That's my understanding based on what was read on the law. Again, it pertains to, I would say, young people, the people that are growing and they might be exposed to some of the harmful chemicals. Older folks perhaps are not as affected. I don't know. Did you want to share anything on that, Maria?
Well, I mean, yeah, from my reading, I think if you look at the intent behind the statute, it's that to protect the younger kids. But in terms of what you call it, like, I mean, that would take additional research. This only addresses kindergarten, elementary, or secondary schools. It doesn't address Sunday school or any sort of gathering of children that are not in school, like clubs or anything. That would take more research.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was mentioning. The kids have been going there for years, after school, Monday through Friday, and Sunday, Saturday for, so it happens, they're there, they get the.
Just in a different building.
Exactly, and actually, I guess closer to the roadway, if they're right at the doorway to the entrance of the assembly hall. This is kind of pushed back towards the housing in the back, right? A little bit more distance, in my opinion, than where they would be assembling right now for the educational purposes, which is right in the main prayer hall. But they've been going there. I know that. I've seen them there. Learning the language and the scripture. So, I don't know.
There's not going to be more than 100 students in that classroom, right? I doubt it, right?
I don't even think it can occupy.
I don't think you'll occupy that, yeah. So then it would actually just be an accessory unit. It wouldn't be considered more than an accessory unit to the actual church. But to their point is how that would change in the future. But as of right now, even under the code, it's very specific. It would be considered an accessory place of religion and worship, the Sunday school they would be doing, in a sense. So it wouldn't even be classified as a school. But it's still, for your concern, we understand that.
So now I'm looking for a recommendation.
I think he has a.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed you. Sorry.
One factor that needs to be considered is the exposure. Like the public school, regular school, they run for like 6 to 8 hours a day. And this is just a 2 hours window. And again, the classes will rotate. So basically the kids will be having exposure for an hour or maybe hour 15 minutes. And secondly, as Planning Director Miguel suggested, we can put a vegetative barrier like intense landscaping along divide in front of the school portion, so that any driplets from the spray, those can be condensed by those trees. So like cypress trees we can plant every 4 feet, so that make a very good barrier. So that is another option. Generally, farmers also plant like wind barriers around the fields just to, I believe, I'm not doing farming here, but back in my country, so I belong to a farming family. So wind barriers like planting trees around the perimeter of, so the same thing we can apply in front of the school building along the Dwight Way. So that can be a condition. So this is just my piece of advice.
Yeah.
Yes, Scott.
Sorry.
That's okay. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sorry, I thought of something after I sat down.
My brother and I have spent about $80,000 on new technology on spray rigs. And back when I was in college, we were spending, back when I was in college, back in the early 80s, when we were spraying at about 400 to 500 gallons of water per acre at the time. Now, we're down to 25 gallons of water to the acre. And the new technology that we've gone to is electrostatic. So what we're doing is we're putting a positive charge on that material as it leaves the spray rig. And since the tree is grounded, it actually pulls that material to the tree. So what we've done is tried to reduce the amount of drift because of school situations like this. And it's not just us, it's other growers are doing the same thing, but technology is the direction we're going, and that's what we're trying to do to make our environment safer. And also for us as an operator, it makes it safer because we don't have that material hanging in the air quite as long, because you could actually see that material getting pulled to the tree. But just reducing the amount of water that's getting put out there, so you don't have that material just dripping off the tree and onto the ground. So it's actually adhering to the tree, it's actually hitting the target. And so what we're doing is we're trying to reduce our risk, trying to reduce everybody's exposure to that material. As my brother said, we do farm on some major fairways, Peach Avenue, West Side Boulevard, and those corridors are very busy. We've got school buses traveling up and down those corridors all day long as well. And so that gives us another issue as well. So, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that we have tried to stay current with technology to reduce our risk and our hazards that we're putting out there. So, thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, and thank you again for bringing, sometimes we look at, oh, we have another comment? Okay.
Yes, I have one question from the farmers. So, how many times they do the spray and how many they take it?
I think he tried to answer that by saying sometimes they don't know. There's no
No, doesn't
definite
matter,
schedule.
7 days, 5 days, 10 days, they know that. How many days they can start and when they finish. If the Sikh temple management take day off for the schools that time, when they're spraying, they give the children off days, so they no open the school. What about that?
So you're saying if they could share their schedule,
Yes, when
And
they
maybe
spray,
you
they
could-
know that, how many days they're spraying.
maybe they could make a concession at the school and
Yes,
close
they
the
can
school
take
so that
off
there to
days.
be,
To all the people, they
They-
take off,
they wouldn't have the 6 to 6 restriction.
yeah.
In my opinion, I think it's already been happening. I think they've kind of communicated amongst themselves of when, I think the Abrahams, they've noticed, like, when the weddings are and all that stuff. I think you guys have taken a proactive approach to accommodate. I think it should go both ways as well, right? If they see maybe you guys are spraying, then maybe they don't have instruction that day. Maybe that's something that can happen. Sorry, I know you're.
That's fine,
Well,
that's fine.
and that's
Yeah.
okay. And I know there's lots of other properties they farm, and again, they have a full job as well, so the communication sometimes definitely is gonna need to come from the temple.
Well, thank you very much about taking all this time. I know this matter is very serious, but to me, look like when we have classes, those kids are going to be indoor, like they're not going to be playing outside or anything. So they will be inside all the times, even though it's like small class and for short period, but they will be all inside, and it's all just enclosed building.
I don't think that matters. It clearly states 6 to 6, there will be no spraying. So it doesn't matter if the children are inside or outdoors, hun, but thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Any more comments?
I promise I won't belabor this any longer. I know it's late. I do want to answer his question. Sir, it's very difficult, and I want to start by actually saying that Farm Bureau doesn't have a stance in this position. I just like to use every opportunity that I can to help educate and give ag side that I'm going to. So it's very hard to indicate when we're going to spray because we don't know what the weather is going to be like necessarily. Things change. It's going to be very difficult, or they might be at another field that has more pest pressure. So those things are kind of up in the air. And then it would be very hard for the farmer to tell the school, Sunday school, hey, we're gonna spray, but they already have an event plan, so that creates a challenge as well. And regardless, when it comes into a school area, I know not Sunday school, but a school is considered a school by this standard, so.
But farmers always know that when they're ready for the spray. I know that, right? You know that tomorrow maybe the farmers spray guy is coming, so we are spraying tomorrow, so they can information everybody.
Sometimes, but it's also then sometimes
Doesn't
you're.
matter emergency 24 hours, whether you have a time. I think so.
Okay.
Every farmer have a time, 24 hours, when they start the spray or whatever. I am farming too.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any more comments? Okay, then I think I'm looking for the planning commissioners to give a motion to recommend the approval of the resolution that I read before, 2026XX, approving the site plan and design review, application number 25-03, to develop the 1,340 square foot building addition to be used as a Sunday school consisting of 2 classrooms with bathroom facilities, subject to conditions of approval contained in the resolution.
I'll make that motion.
I can second that.
Can I get a second?
Yeah.
Martha?
Roll call. Commissioner Jasneel Singh,
Yes.
Commissioner Steve Bassi,
Yes.
Vice Chair Jose Flores,
Yes.
Chair Renee Mendoza.
Yes.
Motion approved by a vote of 4-0.
We will take a brief break and allow Commissioner J.T. Mann to resume his position on the dais.
Well, I think he left.
Oh, you think he left?
I think he's gone.
Okay, he left.
Huh?
Did he leave?
Yeah. He thought you excused him.
No, I meant he could come back after, but.
Yeah, no, he thought he's excused for the. Yeah, he's gone.
You guys kicked him out, what's wrong?
Yeah, I don't know if you had or not, but have yourself.
Okay, to finalize everything, we have other matters, non-public hearing items. 9A, correspondence received from the Merced County Farm Bureau dated 9/29 of 2025. That was attached in the packet, the letter from the Farm Bureau. to review, discuss, and provide direction to the staff. We had come across this letter because we were doing our general plan, I do believe, and at that point, we were asking for some land to be moved into the city limits. And because we're trying to do infill as where we can for, to meet our housing needs and that. And then we received the letter on 9/29. I did not get an opportunity to review it again. So at this point, just wanted to bring the letter to everybody's attention and to see if there was any discussion. We do have the representative from the Farm Bureau here in case we need to ask any questions in that. Do any of the commissioners have questions? And Miguel, can I ask, because when we were trying to, set up our general plan and that, and with an idea that we might be able to move in some of that land on the Peach Corridor into the city limits, is that something that we are still pursuing, and that this letter from the Farm Bureau is basically indicating that that allowance would not be provided?
Let me provide an update on the general plan update and relate how the Farm Bureau's letter correspondence has been incorporated into the current update process. You're absolutely right. As part of the general plan update, the city was in the process of identifying and developing a study area for the preferred land use alternatives. As you may recall, the Plan Commission recommended a preferred land use alternative that included expansion of the sphere of influence, and it had some recommendations as to, protecting farmland and things like that. The City Council, they did adopt a preferred land use alternative. It does include some, I'll call an ag buffer area. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're not intending to develop all the way to Sultana, but rather the intent is to identify some properties that can continue to be farmed, maintain agricultural production. And the direction that staff has received is that we're going to be incorporating in our land use element, you have the house element, the land use element, the safety element. In the land use element, we're looking at incorporating policies and mitigation measures that can continue to allow ag uses within the cities, even the city limits, the city sphere, and incorporate mitigation measures for those properties or developments that are near active farming operations. I know that the Farm Bureau has requested additional items such as one-to-one mitigation measures. If prime farmland is being converted, then it should be replaced. And there'll be others like that. And these are some of the items that we're going to be evaluating during our environmental assessment. As you know, the general plan update will include a preparation of an environmental impact report. As part of that evaluation, we're going to be looking at impacts to prime farmland or important farmland and how that any development will affect those, and those will generate mitigation measures that we can incorporate for any new development. Some of the things that we did suggest to the Farm Bureau, which they liked, and I'll just review those. Incorporating right to farm notices and new developments. So if a new subdivision is coming in, is being proposed, that all the property owners in that area are notified that, there's some neighboring properties that are farmers and they have a right to farm, and, you should not be complaining about dust or, as we talked about, spraying and other things like that. And so it's just like a notice for new property owners that are living next to farms. We're also looking at incorporating setback buffers where new land uses that are high people intensive will need to maintain a certain distance away from active farming operations. We've talked about having goals and programs for the development of farm worker housing, even though farms do have their own labor source. There's always an opportunity for farmers to provide housing for them. Oftentimes they come to the local jurisdiction for that, but maybe we can work cooperatively together. We also talked about incorporating policies to support economic diversification, and that is really aimed at identifying land uses or businesses that can be located in the business, but also serve the ag community. For example, you got Foster Farms and, their poultry processing plant. And so it's a urban use, but they support the ag community. Another might be, a shelling operation for almonds. They can locate in the city, but then they're providing services to the almond growers or the nut growers and things like that. The other thing is just supporting agricultural land uses, value-added food processing. So we always think that there's opportunity to provide expansion opportunities for some of the existing farmers that are relying on city services, city sewer, water. And so it's a win-win situation. But as I said, we're in the process of updating our general plan land use element, or I should say all the general plan elements, and part of that will be the land use element. We are considering perhaps an ag element. We would look at the Merced County and some of the other counties in the area to see what components they have from their ag element that we can incorporate. But more than likely, we'll probably be recommending certain land use policies in our land use element that really geared to protect and address farming operations as they relate to properties that are within the city or next to the city. Hopefully that provides some additional context for you in our response to the Farm Bureau. But stay tuned. Once we get our updated general plan with all its elements fleshed out, then this will be coming back to the commission for additional review. And thus will also be relayed out to the Farm Bureau, the farmers, and those people that have expressed interest to be on our interested parties list. Again, we are neighbors, and so we are dependent on each other, and we look at the best way we can work together. I know Bree from the Farm Bureau is here to answer any questions, any responses, and I welcome her to add to the discussion if she's so inclined.
So at this point, Miguel, until we move forward with our general plan and that the letter that's from the Farm Bureau, doesn't appear we may have any discussion on it. Is it something I need to open up to public comment or that? Or?
Yes, please open it up, and I think Bree is anxious to get up and share some of our perspective.
Well, then I'm going to open it up to public comment.
Good evening again, Brianne Vandenberg, Executive Director, Merced County Farm Bureau. I just came tonight, I noticed we were on the agenda in some fashion, and so wanted to come and offer the opportunity if anybody has any questions, but also you're welcome to reach out to me at any point. I have my business card, I'm happy to share it. These two over here have my contact information, happy to sit one-on-one or with two of you, however you guys want to work that, that's fine by me. And that was just a kind of a rundown of the meeting we had with staff just before that letter came out, as a rundown as to say, here are our viewpoints. And that's pretty much it. So thank you for the time tonight.
Thank you, Brianna. I may be reaching out to you just on a comment so I could better understand one of the paragraphs on the second page, but I'll reach out to you personally. Thank you.
I will add that once the land use element comes out, we will be reaching out to the interested parties and stakeholders, including the Farm Bureau, and kind of get their input on our proposed text and policies and objectives and goals and things like that. So this is not done, but it's still in process, so thank you.
On the bottom, it does say review, discuss, and provide direction to staff. What direction is staff, I guess that's not what direction they're looking for, but.
I think Miguel said more to follow.
That was added at the request of the city attorney, but specifically if the commissioners have any direction to staff, you have the opportunity to direct staff, we want you to consider this or do this or that, and that's the main purpose. So if you have any recommendations or direction for staff, that would be the opportunity to provide that. I don't know, Maria, if you want to provide any additional context?
As I was commenting to Miguel the other day that we needed to have an action item with it, just other than just listing the letter there. So, I mean, any direction you want to give, or we can, just including file the letter for future action, or,
There does not have to be any action.
Yeah.
To be continued?
Yeah.
Even for an action?
No, not to continue the item, but yeah, just to note it and file it.
So at this point, is 9A,
But you don't need, it's a discussion item, so you don't need to make a motion
Okay.
or vote on anything.
I just needed to know if we were through discussing 9A and could we move on?
Yeah.
I do have a question, though. From our general plan, well, the sphere, how we looked at it from the planning, I know it changed when it got to the council. That was approved, wasn't it?
Yes, the city council adopted a preferred land use alternative, which was a little different than what the planning commission recommended. I thought we relayed a copy that I'm happy to relay a revised version to the commissioners.
Yes, please. I haven't. I could dig through the agenda.
We'll send it to you.
On the
Okay.
website.
And then has this letter been provided to council members as well?
Yes.
Okay.
And again, you can reach out to the Farm Bureau direct in case you have any additional questions.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to 9B, City of Livingston Multifamily Residential Development Regulations, Livingston Municipal Code Section 5-5-4, review, discuss, and provide direction to staff. That I have not seen. Okay, here we go. Yes, I'm sorry, here we go. Yeah, I got a little
At the
marquee
last
on it, so
planning
I wouldn't
commission
forget it.
meeting, the planning commissioners asked that an item be brought back to the commission for the commission to review the city's current multifamily residential development standards. During our discussion on January 13th, we talked about some housing development projects that would be allowed to be developed by right. These are those properties that were previously identified in our housing element from the fifth cycle. If they're still on our inventory of housing sites, then they can come in with a building permit and there's no additional review. And so some of the commissioners I understood were expressing concern, well, do they have any design guidelines or development standards that they would be subject to? And so I was asked to bring back for the commissioners, what is the city's development standards in our zoning code? And here's what they are. The development standards are under B. It covers off-street parking requirements. It covers private open space, shared open space. Private open space is like a small patio for you. A shared open space might be like a park area within it. It talks about providing private storage space. It provides provisions for boat trailer storage, laundry facilities, lighting, security, landscaping, the densities, design, height limit setbacks, trash enclosures. When we review the projects, we look at all these things and we review these items with the developer to make sure that they're meeting these design standards. And then there's special design standards under C, development standards for interface between multifamily residential and single family, moving outdoor recreation areas and waste collection areas away from properties that are designated for single family. And you can see the other ones there. So anyway, this is provided to you as information as requested. And so if you have any direction or comments for staff, we're open to that.
Is it something that if we review this after the meeting and have some type of recommendation or question, can we then bring it to the next meeting? Or is it something I can just reach out to you, Miguel, and discuss?
Both of those items will work. If you want to say we want to continue this, we can continue it. You can leave it on as a standing item, or you can say, let's bring it back 2 or 3 months from now, and we can discuss it. What I would suggest is that as we look at the housing element, we have some code amendments and things like that that talk about housing standards and housing requirements. And I think you'll be in a much more informed position to look at, okay, well, which projects will be allowed to be developed by right, which ones will come to the Plan Commission, and then you can determine what would be appropriate development standards or design standards that we can apply to certain areas. And if the commission says, oh, you know what, some of these old former housing sites that we identified that can be developed by right, well, maybe we should improve our development standards here. And this is something that the commission would recommend to the city council, and the city council would take formal action if they so choose to either agree to, I don't want to say improve or enhance, might be a better word, the design standards that we have. I know as we look at mixed-use development, particularly where there's businesses in the bottom and apartments on top, we certainly want to look at what the development standards would be for that type of development, because that's kind of like a new product, a hybrid, as the world changes. Anyway, I perhaps provide more information than you want.
Okay, so we can move on to 10.
Yes.
Report of the Community Development Director.
Okay, thank you. I always write my notes down because at the end of the day, I want to remember what I want to talk about. Recent city council actions related to planning matters. On January 29th, the city council held a committee workshop to identify city goals and priorities. Some of the commissioners were in attendance. I know the mayor and who is present here, and Councilmember Wallace were present. So they were able to develop, identify goals and priorities, and I think there'll be additional steps that will be coming forward from that. On February 3rd, 2026, the City Council approved a professional service agreement with J.B. Anderson Land Use Planning to continue to provide land use planning services. Even though you see me, there's a team behind me, or I should say, standing on their shoulders. You met one of the planning team here, Jayla Smith, but J.B. Anderson does have a team of about 8 planners. If I'm sick or we need additional help, we kind of staff up. So we've been busy, and the council approved a new professional service agreement with my company, or I should say the company I work for. Housekeeping items, as alluded to earlier, the statement of economic disclosures is due by April 1st. You can submit that online. You can coordinate that with Monica, the deputy city clerk. On the horizon, we're looking at a conditional use permit for property along 7th Street and Peach Avenue. This concludes the director's report for this evening. Thank you.
Now would be for the planning commissioner reports, announcements, and future agenda items. This portion of the agenda is reserved for the chairperson and commissioners to make brief reports on public events or activities, to request updates, and to initiate future agenda items. Does any of the planning commissioners have any reports, future items, or comments? Okay, then can I get a motion to adjourn? Is that what I need to do next? What, just adjourn?
You can just adjourn and cite the time that the meeting's over. So you can say, I adjourn the meeting at 9:20 or 9:19 it is.